Hello and welcome to a video that I'm making kinda spontaneously because I wanted to talk about how I approach shading my drawings and it's kind of addressing some mistakes I used to make. I will say I am just one artist who does cartoony stuff, so I don't exactly have any hard and fast rules to give you. It's not like this isn't a guide or anything, this is just how I personally approach things. Because, it could be helpful to some people. So, the most common way I shade things is just with one layer of cell shading. That means hard shading, you just have a color. Yeah, it's not blended or anything. And within those light and dark areas, I sometimes use gradients, but at its base it's just areas of shadow and areas in light. I might do highlights here and there, but I typically reserve those for particularly shiny things, like hair or eyes or metal. And this is just to help distinguish some materials from each other, because kind of ironically, if you do the same lighting to everything, it can kind of make the piece feel flat because there's no distinguishing between, different materials or different, ways lights affect things. Another thing that I personally try to avoid is that makes shading kind of look flat is something I guess I'm going to call embossed shading, which is where you apply shadow or highlight in a way that just kind of contours the line art. Not really considering the 3D form that you're trying to represent. And what this gives the effect of is that it's just a flat thing that just protrudes out a little bit. Doesn't really have any indication of any form beyond that. Sometimes obviously this is what you want, but for example on a sphere, if you just add a little band of shadow and a band of light, it doesn't give any information about the big flat area in the middle. So it looks, flat, when in reality, it's constantly curving. So for example with this ball, if the light was closer to the viewer, the lit area would be more round, or if the light is kind of further away, the shadow would be more round. You don't typically see this kind of thing a lot, because most things you're drawing probably have a bit more three-dimensionality than just an embossed shape. Another side effect of doing this kind of embossed shading is that you might just kind of be not thinking about it when you apply light and shadow, just kind of going around the edges. And for example, if there's a detail that's flat against a surface, that wouldn't cast any shadows nor have any form shadows on it. But by adding those shadows, you're kind of implying that there's a change in angle to the surface, which, in reality wouldn't be there. Another thing I used to do was take my cell shading layer, duplicate it, and then smudgily blend it a bunch. It would have this weird texture and it would kind of muddy up the drawing a lot. With a style like mine that has a lot of hard edges everywhere else, it can kind of look a bit awkward if there's suddenly this weirdly smooth but also textured shading. This smudging thing I used to do, I think it was a symptom of just not being confident in my shading, which, I was less experienced, so yeah. But basically I wanted there to be areas of light and areas of dark, but it's I was trying to hide the discrete line where it changes from one to the other because, I didn't really know where to place it. Another thing I would also do is break up a shadow when it crosses over to a different section of line art. And I think this was because I would focus on just one area of color at a time, thinking how do I shade this so that the light is hitting it from this direction, without considering how consistent it is with the rest of the piece. And, the kind of rules that are established. If you were to ask me the one thing I've heard repeated the most throughout doing art at uni, it's that you need to start from the general and work to the specific. I think that could kind of mitigate this issue of, sectioning off areas. One way you could do it is by just doing a big, really rough, really sketchy shading layer where you're not focusing on any details, just simplifying everything to really big, basic forms. Yeah, just plopping down some colors, you know? That's one of the beauties of, you know, digital art, is that you can just kind of slap things down and then delete them later. Or if you're doing things traditionally, you can just, like, you know, set aside a different piece of paper and just do a little sketch just to test things out. Yes. Yeah, doing little tests and stuff is something I still do to this day, by the way. It's really helpful to just loosely plan things out. Even if it's just like a scribble done in a minute. It, yeah, can kind of give you a lot more direction when you're working on a piece, so you're not just kind of like fumbling about. Yeah, speaking of my art nowadays though, when I shade things, I specifically like to make big, like chunky, sometimes angular shapes with the shadows. And like when I'm deciding where to put the imaginary light source in a piece, it's kind of like fun to consider what the most interesting place to put it would be. Like in like photography, like how people will purposefully like put a light so you get that little triangle of light on the person's cheek. Yeah, like that kind of thing. Just trying to think like what fun shading shapes can I get? Yeah. Something I'm also less scared of is having a piece where a lot of the subject is in shadow. Yeah, it feels like I kind of just played it safe a lot of the time. Again, that's, I guess, just a confidence thing. But yeah, one of the beauties of digital art, again, is that once you have your lines down on the layer, you can mess with stuff like colors and blend modes all you want, and you undo it or delete it. So, you know, just by messing with stuff, you can make an image seem like blown out or underexposed, or make it really colorful, and just, you know, just have fun with it. Yeah. If you're wondering what I usually do in terms of shading though, I usually just make a layer on top of the color, make it a clipping mask, and paint around with like a light pink, and set that to multiply. As I said before, I'll sometimes add highlights, either with a normal blend mode, handpicking the colors, or I'll just do an add glow layer if I'm feeling lazy, with some kind of orange or yellow. Yeah, if a piece needs a little more depth, I might add a second layer of shading, like if I want to emphasize the like depths in some like clothes creases or hair or anything like that. But, you know, not all the time. Like one layer of shading can go really far, which is something I've, yeah, I guess been doing a lot lately. Yeah, so that's about all I had to say. I hope this was helpful in some way. I don't know. There was probably a lot of old art of mine in this video, so maybe that was just a fun little peek into the past. Yeah, hope whatever you're drawing is going well, and have a good day.